Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from LexisNexis. It used to be in the Jordan's publishing stable, and it's now been taken over by LexisNexis. It's called Cretney Lush on Lasting and Enduring Powers of Attorney, now in an 8th edition, and it's been edited today by Denzil Lush and Caroline Bielanska, both very experienced people. The book itself is actually quite a substantial book. We'll have a look at it in a moment. Elizabeth was the lead writer for this review, and the title I've given the review is Celebrating 30 Years of Invaluable Advice on Lasting and Enduring Powers of Attorney. The latest edition of Cretney Lush is out now. Now let's have a look at the book first of all. And there it is, paperback. It's quite a big book, very substantial. There's the spine, and then there's the back of the book there. Now, we've got about 900 odd pages in total. You can see that the way in which the index is structured is by paragraph numbering. And in addition to that, we've got the usual structure that is established for this type of index, which is the paragraph number. It's not mentioned as such, but that's how it's done. Now the back of the book has, again, quite a substantial amount of additional information on it, meeting the needs of vulnerable clients. You can see that's actually how it ends. You can see the paragraph numbering there. Very much of a practical book in many ways, because there's a lot of practical advice in this work. Running all the way through, lots of forms that are filled in. These are court forms, application to object to the registration of a lasting power of attorney, and so on. It's a big issue. It's become much more important in recent years. The front of the book is there. That's the front page, and it says every care has been taken to ensure the accuracy of the work, and there's no responsibility if they've got anything basically wrong. Glad they put that in, because we do make mistakes like everybody does. There's the detail about the book itself, and there's the foreword. Now the foreword from Denzil is well worth reading. It's quite long, and he sort of sets out the information. It's dated July 2017. I'm recording this at the beginning, January 2018. Then Caroline has produced a preface, which again is quite detailed, because she's actually the one who's taken over the huge work involved in this, and that's dated June 2017 as well. Then you've got the contents section of the book itself. A lot of detail in the excuse me, in the contents, which means that you should be able to find things pretty quickly. And then you've got, after that, you've got again, runs through a long way the contents section. Then you've got the table of cases, and then table of statutes, not that many cases fortunately, then statutory instruments of course, and then we move from there to the actual part one. It's split into parts. Part one is the lasting powers of attorney, and then you see how the book runs through, paragraph numbering all the way through, one being chapter 1 and so on all the way through. And as I say, you can see from this onset of mental incapacity, for instance, details there. It's dealing with a difficult issue. It's dealing with an area that is becoming more and more important, sadly, for all of us. And it's something that, in the longer term, we need to be aware of. So, apart from the fact that this book is suitable for virtually everyone to read, it's very readable. What do we say about it? We say this: the law relating to lasting and enduring powers of attorney covers a difficult area of family practice, which, excuse me, due to an ageing population, is developing ever more quickly. It calls for fine judgment, special sensitivity, and of course knowledge of the law. And practitioners therefore will certainly welcome the new edition. It's now in an eighth edition from LexisNexis, called Cretney Lush on Lasting and Enduring Powers of Attorney. Now, this is indeed a venerable and highly respected work of reference, which remains ever up to date. And on a personal point, and I may discuss this with Elizabeth, Dr. Stephen Cretney himself, he's now an emeritus professor at All Souls, Oxford, continues to occupy a special place in the memory of many a graduate who read law and who then, as now, appreciates the clarity with which this difficult subject is presented in this book. Cretney, of course, is well known to many of us, certainly to me, in family law. And I've always liked the way he was able to put forward the points, because I did find family law quite difficult initially when I read it. And of course I practice in that area, so of course it has been very useful to me. And I'm therefore very pleased to see that they've kept Stephen's name. So thank you for that. Now the two current editors, Denzil Lush and Caroline Bielanska, now continue this admirable tradition, and we're very grateful too, believe me. As a result, the book's distinguished as a readable and accessible source of advice, not only for specialist practitioners, but for unrepresented parties as well. And I make that point because in the modern society we have, a lot of people don't have money for lawyers. They do it themselves. They make mistakes, we all do. However, they are more educated, certainly to a higher level. And that means that there's no reason why they can't at least read these books and get some general understanding about how the system operates. They don't have to be people with an LLB and a professional qualification. And even then, we've got to try to unravel some of the more ridiculous things that some judges and some members of Parliament produce for us as our materials. So therefore, I'm very grateful that this book is available. And Denzil Lush, who's got 30 years experience of dealing with powers of attorney, both as a practitioner and as a judge, makes a somewhat startling comment in the foreword that he has never made an EPA, that's an enduring power of attorney, or a lasting power of attorney himself, an LPA. Quote, "I have seen so much of the pathology associated with powers of attorney and the causes and effects when things go pear-shaped," he says, "that I find it difficult to recall cases where powers have operated smoothly and to the credit of everyone involved." An interesting point, but we've got to start somewhere, frankly, and you've got to have some system. And obviously there may be things that have to be ironed out, but there are going to always be problems, because this is, if you like, social law to a certain extent, in the sense that it's looking at problems which we've got to try and deal with. And of course it's clear from his further remarks, expressed in no uncertain terms, that there is a distinct over-enthusiasm for the EPA and the LPA, which is often unwise, unwarranted, and often damaging for those who are especially vulnerable. And I think that's a very important point to make. Distinct over-enthusiasm. Now, for a number of excellent reasons, Denzil expresses much greater confidence in deputyship, which he regards as a better means of managing someone's property and financial affairs. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, because I'm aware, I have had quite a lot of experience of this area myself, and I can see that there is probably a need for us to revise possibly the jurisprudence itself, the thinking behind it itself. Now, writing in the preface, Caroline Bielanska, who is the author of another publication we reviewed, the Elderly Clients of Precedent Manual, first-class book, she also expresses certain specific concerns about the path of the Office of the Public Guardian, that's the OPG, is travelling, pointing out a number of its shortcomings which it's hoped will eventually be rectified. Good point, and point taken. That said, she's nonetheless a fan of the Health and Welfare LPA, which I agree with, certainly, and has been a welfare attorney for both her parents, which allow them to continue to live and die in their home. Well, I think that's really wonderful, because it is much more difficult if they have to go into a nursing home. And I know that from personal experience. I also know that this business of the Health and Welfare LPA is very, very important, because it is very difficult when people get old. And you feel, then you're nearest and dearest, and you've got to try and make what is the best for them in declining years. It's difficult. It's not an easy decision at all. It's a hard case, if you like, as well. So therefore, it's always, each case must be looked in its own way. But I think that there are different approaches for different types of set of circumstances. And yes, there are times when the issues raised in this area of law appear almost impossibly difficult for practitioners and clients alike. It's reassuring then to know that Cretney and Lush, now celebrating its 30th anniversary, has established its presence as the definitive guide for private client practitioners, person injury and family lawyers, and financial advisors, as well as health and social services professionals. So it's got a wide area of coverage in terms of the guides available. Now, containing much new material, this book, it's about 1,000 or so pages long, is easy to read and easy to use. And I said right at the beginning, that's one of the things that's always attracted me with the basic content of what Stephen Cretney started off with. And certainly in my early years at the bar and as a student, I found his work very helpful. There are minutely detailed tables of contents. There's a lot of information there. Good use of tables of cases, statutes and SIs. 9 appendices at the back, which give you a lot of practical information. It covers wide-ranging subject matter in great detail. Now, many will note the second chapter, which unequivocally states, once and for all, the difference between an enduring power of attorney and a lasting power of attorney. And I think that's a starting off point for probably everyone. Just to refresh one's memory, you understand, but I think it's helpful. Let me conclude by saying this, that for professionals and clients alike, this book combines erudite guidance with a compassionate approach to the many difficult issues raised in what is, I think, a difficult area of law. It's an uncomfortable area of law for all of us, because we've all got to get old and eventually pass on, and therefore we've got to realise the frailty of the human condition, and that's why I think this book does help. The date of publication is cited as at 2017, and I'm recording this in 2018, just knocking things down at the moment. I think the basic point that is being made is that